Okay, so here I've got the pattern printed on A4 paper. I just cut some file folders to that size. It's pretty thick paper. So you just have to cut, around the edges. You don't have to cut right on the lines because we're going to tape this to our leather. And I use 2.5 ounce leather veg tan, which is already dyed and polished. And there's a prototype I made. Sorry for the background noise. My laptop it's like a really good laptop and it's pretty fast, but the fan is always running on it, so sorry about that. Using some cheap masking tape here. I got it from the dollar store. I recommend that because you can see through it and it doesn't leave any residue on the leather. And when you remove the leather, you can see right there, no residue, and it doesn't pull up the dye. So here's my pattern. I got a punch board, a 1.5 millimeter punch there, but I decided to use it's like a stitching iron, but this is a punching, we call it stitch punch, 5 millimeters separated between the tines. And I'm just doing the left side. And then I do the right side, and I would recommend that you punch down to the line and then start again at the, right after that line, because there's a little gap there and the holes won't line up if you try to just keep going. So definitely recommend you do that. Here I have the manual punch to punch the hole for the snaps, and I got one of those kits online. It's a nice kit, but when you try to attach the studs to the snaps, they don't look so good. I mean, they hold, but I think there's other websites where you can get better snaps. I think Buckle Guy is one. I've never been to that vendor before. Here I'm punching the hole because I guess it wasn't big enough, or it's still not big enough. So I'm just cutting into that groove there, and then I had to manually punch it, and then I'm just verifying that those studs will go through the hole. So I mean, if you want to learn how to do those, attach those rivets, usually there's instructions in the package if you get one of those kits, or you can look on YouTube for other people's tutorials, and I'm sure they explain it well. Here I'm using a 1-inch punch just to punch out that area on the bottom, which is actually going to be on the top where the credit cards go in. And now I'm just cutting the straight line using the ruler. My ruler has a cork on the back. I recommend getting one of those, because if you don't, it's going to slide all over. And also, after you cut a side, I recommend taking some of the used tape and just taping it to the back like that so it holds the pattern on. And then I'm slicing the bottom here, just like I said, actually the middle. Okay, now you have the round edge. I'm using a skiving knife, Japanese skiving knife. I'm not sure if it's made in Japan, but I just polished it on that leather with some jeweler's rouge, and then use the flat part against the line and kind of work your way around to remove the leather. You can use the utility knife to do that, but your edges are going to be kind of beveled, kind of have an angle to them. So I like using this skiving knife because it cuts straight up and down. And here I am just removing the pattern using one of these little sanding sticks that came in one of the leather kits that I bought. It was actually a leather tool kit, I think $30 or something, but works well. So here I'm just cleaning up a little bit. Doing leather work always makes a mess. I recommend, if you have a room dedicated to that you have tiles put in, remove the carpet, because it's hard to vacuum and clean the carpet once those strings and dust and everything gets in there. Here I have an edge beveler and that little metal thing with the mountains on it. It's basically, you choose the size of your beveler. This is like a 0, and then you put sandpaper over it, and then you just stroke that beveler backwards a few times, and then you use it on that leather strop with that rouge, and you can see here it's cutting really cleanly. Of course, this is all sped up because I know you probably get bored watching me cut the edge, but you could always slow it down on YouTube if you want. And then here I'm just sanding again. So you can see like a little black mark there on the right side. I was using a permanent marker to dye the edges, and then I remembered it's better to use the Tokonol, that cream, to make your edges nice and smooth. And then once you do that, use a permanent marker and then dye your edges, or you can use some regular leather dye, but those permanent markers are really inexpensive and they work well. So here I'm just using the wooden slicker to slick the edges, and then now I'm using the marker. You gotta take it real slow because I slipped here. I got a little bit on the front. It's not a big deal if you wipe it up quickly, but if you make a big mark and you want to use some like isopropyl alcohol to remove that mark, it's going to strip the finishes and maybe the dye off the leather, so I don't recommend doing that. Later I use some conditioning cream on the top, and it kind of removes it and smooths it out and makes it look glossy, and you don't even notice it. It's like a little smudge and it kind of went away. So yeah, like I said, here I am just doing all the edges with the permanent marker, and it's sped up because I know you don't want to watch me do this in real time. It's definitely boring, but I recommend always trying to make your edges look the best. Take your time because it will show in the end, especially when you do stitching. You want to make sure your stitching is straight, and when you punch the holes you want to make them straight, and that's the major cause of the thread not looking good, is if you punch irregular holes or crooked holes. So here I'm just sticking the needle in the second hole from the top and then lining it up with the top hole where the little cutout is. And now I'm putting Tokonol in the back. I should have done this before I cut the leather because it makes a mess, and it's going to come through that hole and then it's going to go into the front side of the leather. So most of the time this is always an afterthought with me to finish the rough side of the leather. And you want to make it nice because you're going to be putting cards in there and everything, and you want it smooth. So basically you just cover that whole surface with Tokonol and then use a glass slicker is what I'm doing here. It's just a smooth device to take the edges, not the edges, but the leather grain, and kind of bind them together. And then I'm on the last stage here, going to sew it. I'm not going to explain how to sew to do a saddle stitch. If you're buying leather patterns, I'm assuming that you know how to use 2 needles and a thread. Basically what I do is I measure my thread 5 times the length, but it's not going to be 5 times that big length you see right there. It's going to be half of it because it's folded. So just remember that, otherwise you're going to cut too much thread. And now I'm looking for the snaps and all the hardware that I need. And you can fast forward past this if you want, if you already know how to do the snaps. I don't really go in depth explaining how to do this. I pretty much just put them in and set it on the base, and then use that rubber mallet and then pound the snap onto the stud. It's pretty straightforward, and these kits come with instructions, so it's not a big deal. I mean, you do it once and you pretty much learned how to do it. Of course, you can either hit it too hard or too many times and kind of shred that inside stud. And these are not the best studs. I wish I had bought a better set, but they do the job. I just don't know how long those snaps are going to last. So with this pattern here, this was like the first time I made it in leather, and you can see the top cover or the top snap is, it comes down a little bit on the leather. So I changed the pattern a little bit, and I made the hole go back towards the bottom so that it's not so close to the edge and looks a lot better. I tested it out with some paper prototypes and some actual snaps I wasted just to make sure that, you know, you guys use this pattern and you're not frustrated. So everything should line up, and if it doesn't for you, let me know. But I've made this pattern a few times, so I'm pretty sure everything's good. Yeah, and you can see there, like I said, the snap is a little bit high, but it works. I mean, I'm going to use it. I'm going to put my cards in there, and it's convenient. I like having all the stuff easily accessible. So you can see the top is real glossy now because I had put the conditioner on it. I'm having a hard time with these snaps wearing these gloves. So I had some small cuts on my hands, and I didn't want to get dirt in there and have to keep washing my hands. So I wore those gloves, so don't think I'm weird or anything. So I don't normally wear gloves like this unless I'm dyeing some leather. Yeah, this, I didn't realize this was taking me so long in this video. Yeah, like I said, if you want to fast forward past this, you can. I mean, pretty much everything has been explained, and if you've done any leather work, you know how to do all this, at least the snaps. Yeah, I'm just making sure that it works, and it does. And the cap is, like I said, is a little bit big, but it's functional and it's fine. So the next step, like I said, stitching, and you want to fold that thing up and then measure your thread like 5 times that length. Okay, so I realized after I made the video I forgot to give a good example of how to stitch, or how to do the top part of the stitch. Some people that watch this video might not even know how to do that, so I'll show how to do that with the prototype here. I said before to do 5 times your stitching line, because I'm not going to do like this, right? Because it's going together like this, so we have to go 5 times that. And sometimes when you have a thicker leather or stacked layers, you're going to have to use even more thread. So this time I'm going to use 6. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, thread is relatively inexpensive. This stuff is Ritza thread, so it's not the cheapest, but you get what you pay for. This stuff is really waxed well. It's polyester. It's just made well. It works great. And I bought some of the Chinese stuff. It actually works, but it's good for prototyping. You can see here I cut it at an angle. See that? So I'm gonna try to get it in here. This is the John James needle I was talking about. You see that it mushes up because the hole is so small. So I need to get some needles with bigger eyelets. So, and it's difficult with these gloves. You can see that. So now I got both. Like I said, with this pouch, I'm gonna start from the bottom. Just pull through the hole, take your needles and make it straight like that. You just go to the next hole. And so you just continue. What I normally do is I pull with my hands a little bit like this. So when I stick the needle in, it doesn't go into the other thread. It doesn't split the thread. That's not what you want. That's not a good way to sew. And then, like I said, pull it a little bit. Sometimes you'll split the thread. Sometimes I just press on. I ignore it and I keep going. It's not really going to damage anything, but it just doesn't look nice. Sometimes you can see it. Sometimes you can't. But you don't want to weaken the thread, right? So we're trying to keep this strong. So like a wallet would last a person's lifetime. And I mean, the thread is what holds everything together. So if you have some good thread, it's going to last a long time. And this is definitely different using paper. I guess it's easier. Like I said, I pull a little bit with my fingers. You want to tighten it every time. Hopefully you can see that properly. Make sure we go through both here.
So this is what I was talking about before. This pattern was one of the early patterns I did. Actually, no, it is here. We have it. So that's the hole I'm talking about. These holes you're going to line up, but you're not going to line up with the top hole. You're going to line up with the hole right down from the first one, right? So if you have overstitch, so we'll just pretend like this hole has been punched already. Oh, that's great. So it tore. So we'll do a little fix here. As we said, this is a prototype. I'm just trying to explain how to do this. So, like I said, you got the top hole. This is for the overstitch, right? And then you go in with the other needle. So now you see this is overstitch right here, from here to here, right? It keeps this tight. And now you want to go back down. And then with the top one, you want to go back into where the other thread was, right? See that? And then what I do is, I want my threads to come out the backside, so I leave that one, that one's fine. And then I go here with this one. You see that? So now we got like a double stitch there. It's called a back stitch, but I went up here and then down and then down. So I have them both come out the backside. That's how I did the real pouch. I cut it like that. And then you take a lighter, which I can find it. I got a fan going on here, that's why the flame jumps around. So you just kind of melt those. Be careful, it's hot. So some people just take the lighter and do it like that. And it makes a little bit of a mess, but that's how you stitch the top part. So remember, starting from here and going up, you know, from this hole all the way up to there, and then back down, back down. I mean, you can go, you know, double back 3 if you want, but keep it consistent. You know what I mean? So if you go 1 down or 2 down, make this 2 down also, you know, make it the same. But it's just to reinforce this pocket so it doesn't come apart here. And then of course you just melt those so
At an angle. I guess I should get some needles with bigger eyes on them. So that one, I'm done stitching. I'm going to do the same thing, just burn the ends and then flatten out the threads. Yeah, and this is a project you can do in one afternoon. It doesn't take that long. Maybe 2 or 3 hours, I guess. If you have a laser cutter, that would go even a lot quicker, but my patterns are not set up for a laser. So yeah, it's just to cut it by hand. And here I'm just pressing down on the edge to get it flat. That's a bone folder. It's actually made out of bone. I got that from Amazon. It came with 2 of them. They're heavy. They're real bone. I'm just kind of concerned where the bone came from. I'm hoping it's an animal. So I don't know. But anyway, it works well for creasing paper and also the leather. And also using that tapered point to open up the inside. Here I'm putting up my hammer, so my camera's kind of attached to the wall, and my tool shelf is also attached to the wall, so it kind of moved a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the pouch. You can fit about 5 credit cards in here, and I'm just putting some more of that conditioner on it because I noticed a little scratch. So try to be careful when you're doing things, when you're building things. And it can also be your work surface has something on it, you know, dirty, or maybe a knife or needle can scratch it. You got to be careful. But anyway, that's pretty much the process. That's it. It's not too difficult. And once you've done a couple, it's not a big deal. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the pattern, and have a good day.